The alien's hateful eyes. Captain Ray Carter woke up with a sharp pain in his head. His arms were tied behind his back, and his legs felt weak. The air was thick and heavy, making it hard to breathe. His vision was blurry. But as he blinked, the world around him became clearer. He was inside a dark, cold prison cell. The walls were made of smooth black stone, glowing faintly with strange blue symbols. A metal door with thick bars stood in front of him. There was no way out. Ray tried to move, but his body ached all over. His last memory was of his spaceship being attacked. His team had been on a mission to explore a distant planet when suddenly, alien warships appeared out of nowhere. The battle was quick, brutal. His ship was destroyed. And now, he was here, a prisoner. Outside the cell, 2 alien guards stood with weapons in their hands. Their bodies were tall and covered in silver armor. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. They did not speak. They just watched him. But it wasn't the guards that made Ray uneasy. It was her. Standing behind the guards was Commander Zora, the alien warrior who had captured him. She was different from the others. Her skin was pale blue, and her silver eyes glowed in the dim light. Her long black hair was tied back, revealing sharp cheekbones and a face that looked both fierce and beautiful. But her eyes, they were filled with hatred. She didn't just see him as an enemy. She looked at him like he was something disgusting, something that had no right to exist. Ray had fought many battles before. He had seen enemies filled with rage, soldiers who wanted revenge. But this was different. This wasn't just anger. This was personal. Zora stepped forward. She didn't blink. She didn't hesitate. She spoke in a cold, sharp voice. "You do not belong here, human." Her words were like ice. Ray met her gaze, trying to stay calm. "Where am I?" he asked. His voice was rough, his throat dry. Zora didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the guards. "Lock him in. No food. No water." One of the guards hesitated. "But, Commander." She cut him off with a single look. "Did I give you permission to question me?" The guard stiffened. "No, Commander." "Then follow my orders." Ray clenched his jaw as the guard locked the door and stepped back. No food. No water. That meant they didn't plan to keep him alive for long. Zora stared at him for another long moment before turning and walking away. Ray watched her go, his mind racing. Why did she hate him so much? What had humans done to deserve such fury? He had fought in wars before, but this was the first time he felt like someone wanted him dead, not because of the battle, but because of who he was. His head throbbed again. He needed to think, to plan. But before he could do anything, he heard voices outside his cell. The guards were whispering. "The Great Devourer," one of them said. "It is waking up. What if the humans know?" "They don't," the other guard replied quickly. "They can't. If they knew, they would have run long ago." Ray frowned. The Great Devourer. What were they talking about? A cold feeling crawled up his spine. They weren't just talking about the war. They were afraid of something else. Something bigger. He closed his eyes for a second, gathering his strength. He didn't have much time. Whatever was happening here, whatever the Great Devourer was, it was clear that he was in more danger than he thought. And he had to find a way out, before it was too late. Escape or death. The silence inside the prison cell was heavy. Only the distant hum of alien machines and the faint whispers of the guards filled the cold air. Ray Carter sat against the wall, his wrists sore from the tight restraints. His body ached, but his mind was sharp. He replayed the last few moments in his head. Commander Zora's hateful glare, the guards' whispers about the Great Devourer. Something wasn't right. He needed to escape. Now, Ray shifted his position, feeling along the cold floor. The black stone was smooth but not solid. There was a thin line running through it, almost invisible in the dim light. His fingers pressed against it. A crack. A weakness. He glanced at the guards. Their backs were turned, talking in hushed voices. Perfect. Taking a deep breath, Ray pushed his fingers deeper into the crack. The stone was loose. He pulled, slow at first, then harder. It wouldn't budge. He gritted his teeth. Come on. Then, suddenly, click. The slab shifted. A hidden panel. A way out. Ray's heart pounded. He moved carefully, prying the stone up just enough to see below. Darkness. A tunnel. His way to freedom. But before he could react, "You move, you die." A cold voice sliced through the air. Ray froze. He knew that voice. Commander Zora. She stood outside the cell, her silver eyes burning with quiet fury. She wasn't holding a weapon, but she didn't need one. Her presence alone was enough to send a chill through his spine. Ray slowly sat back, keeping his expression neutral. "I wasn't trying to escape," he lied. Zora stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. "You think I'm a fool?" Her voice was sharp, controlled. Ray met her stare. "No, but I think you want something from me." For a moment, there was silence. Then, for the first time, Zora hesitated. It was small, just a flicker in her expression, but Ray saw it. "She doesn't want me dead." "Not yet." Zora exhaled, her jaw tightening. "Listen to me, human," she said, her voice quieter now. "You think you're fighting a war. You think you're our enemy." Ray's pulse quickened. "Aren't I?" Zora's lips curled slightly. Not a smile, not anger, something else. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If you leave this cell, if you escape, you will die." Ray narrowed his eyes. "Is that a threat?" She shook her head. "It's a fact." Ray studied her carefully. She wasn't lying. "What are you hiding?" he asked. Zora didn't answer. Instead, she turned sharply. "Stay here, Captain Carter. It's the only way you survive the night." Then, without another word, she disappeared into the shadows. Ray clenched his fists. He didn't trust her, but something deep inside told him. She wasn't warning him as an enemy. She was warning him as someone who knew the truth, a truth far more terrifying than war. And he was going to find out what it was, no matter the cost. The secret of the planet. The screams started at midnight. Ray Carter sat in his dark cell, his back against the cold stone wall, when he heard it, a deep, bone-chilling wail from somewhere outside the prison. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was something else. The sound crawled into his skin, made his breath hitch. Then came another scream, then another. The guards outside his cell stiffened, their hands tightening on their weapons. Ray shifted forward, listening. Something was out there, and it was getting closer. Then, to his shock, the guards ran. No warning, no orders, just pure fear. Ray's mind raced. What was powerful enough to make trained alien soldiers flee without a fight? Then he heard the footsteps. Slow, heavy, dragging against the stone floor. Not human, not alien, something worse. The air grew thick, like the very walls of the prison were holding their breath. A shadow appeared just beyond the cell door, stretching long and jagged under the dim blue lights. Ray's heart pounded. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, the cell door unlocked. Ray froze. No one was there. No guard. No shadow. Nothing. The lock had simply clicked open. He hesitated. This was a trap. It had to be. Then he heard it, a whisper, soft as the wind. Run. Ray didn't wait. He pushed the door open and stepped out into the empty corridor. The prison was eerily silent. The glowing blue symbols on the walls flickered, casting strange moving shadows. Then, a voice. Her voice. "You are a fool, Captain Carter." Ray turned sharply. Commander Zora stood in the hallway, her silver eyes burning like fire. But something was different. For the first time since he had met her, she looked afraid. "What's happening?" Ray demanded. What was that sound? Zora didn't answer immediately. She glanced down the corridor, her body tense, like a predator ready to strike. Then she turned back to him. You humans think this war is about power, territory, control. Her voice was sharp, but there was something else underneath. Something that sounded almost regretful. Ray clenched his fists. Isn't it? Zora exhaled through her nose, stepping closer. No, she whispered. It was never about war. Ray frowned. Then what? She met his eyes. Survival. A loud crash echoed through the prison. Something had broken through the outer wall. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling. Zora grabbed his arm. For the first time, she touched him not as an enemy, but as an ally. If you want to live, Captain Carter, she whispered, her grip tightening. Run. And this time, Ray obeyed. The great devourer arrives. The walls trembled. The ground cracked. The entire prison shook like a dying beast gasping for breath. Ray Carter ran. He didn't know what was coming, but whatever it was tearing the world apart. Commander Zora was just ahead of him, moving fast, her long coat whipping behind her. The once fearsome warrior looked different now, not like a conqueror, not like an enemy. She looked like someone trying to escape the end of the world. Behind them, a terrible sound filled the air. A deep, unnatural growl, like the planet itself was screaming. Ray risked a glance back. He wished he hadn't. The hallway behind them was gone, not destroyed, not broken, just gone. A swirling black void swallowed everything in its path. The stone walls, the glowing symbols, the steel doors, all of it vanished into nothingness. Ray's breath hitched. What the hell is that? Zora didn't stop running. The great devourer. Ray cursed under his breath. He had expected an army, a war, a battle. But this was something else. Something ancient, something unstoppable. Ahead, the hallway opened into a massive alien city. Ray had seen glimpses of it before. Tall spires glowing blue, strange floating platforms, an eerie sky filled with swirling mist. But now it was collapsing. The sky had turned black. Buildings crumbled, vanishing into the void. Alien ships tried to escape, their engines roaring. But the moment they got too close to the swirling darkness, they simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no wreckage, just nothing. Ray's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a creature. This was an extinction event. Zora skidded to a stop near a loading bay. A sleek alien fighter ship sat waiting, its engines still running. Ray didn't wait for an invitation. He sprinted toward it. But then, a scream. Not from behind, from above. Ray looked up and saw them. Shadow-like creatures with elongated limbs and glowing red eyes. They crawled along the crumbling buildings like insects, their bodies shifting unnaturally, as if they weren't fully bound by reality. One of them leaped, straight for Zora. She spun, raised her weapon, and fired. The energy bolt passed right through it. Ray's blood ran cold. The thing wasn't even solid. It landed inches from Zora, tendrils reaching toward her. Ray moved before he could think. He grabbed a loose metal pipe from the ground and swung with everything he had. The moment the pipe touched the creature, a terrible shriek tore through the air. The thing twisted violently, its form distorting. Then it vanished into smoke. Zora's eyes widened in shock. How did you do that? Ray stared at the pipe in his hands. He had no idea. But there was no time to think. More of the creatures were coming. Zora grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward the ship. We're leaving. Now. They sprinted up the ramp. Zora jumped into the pilot's seat, her fingers flying over alien controls. The ship roared to life. The engines glowed. Behind them, the great devourer moved closer. It wasn't just a creature. It wasn't just an enemy. It was the end of everything. And Ray had the sinking feeling. It wasn't finished yet. An unlikely alliance. The ship lurched violently as it tore through the alien sky. Ray Carter gripped the side of his seat, his knuckles white. Outside, the world was collapsing. Entire buildings crumbling into the void, alien ships winking out of existence as the great devourer swallowed them whole. Zora's hands moved fast over the controls, her silver eyes locked on the view screen. She wasn't just flying. She was fighting against the pull of something monstrous, something that wanted them dead. Ray turned, stealing a glance at the swirling black hole behind them. It was growing, expanding. It didn't just consume, it erased, as if nothing had ever existed in the first place. His stomach twisted. "You call that thing the Great Devourer," he said. "What the hell is it?" Zora didn't answer. Ray narrowed his eyes. "You know, don't you?" Zora's grip on the controls tightened. "Knowing won't save you." "Then tell me anyway." The ship jolted as a chunk of debris struck the hull. Warning lights flashed across the dashboard. Zora cursed under her breath and adjusted course. Finally, she spoke. "It is older than our war, older than our people, older than your people." Ray frowned. "You mean it's some kind of ancient weapon?" Zora exhaled sharply. "No, a weapon can be controlled. This thing cannot." She turned to face him, her expression deadly serious. "It is hunger, pure, endless hunger." Ray's jaw clenched. An entity that doesn't conquer, doesn't rule, doesn't destroy for power, just eats, never stopping, never satisfied. "And let me guess," he muttered. "Humans woke it up." Zora's eyes darkened. "You were the spark, but the fire was already waiting to burn." Ray ran a hand through his hair. "Great, just great." A loud beep echoed through the cockpit. Zora checked the readings, her expression hardening. "We can't outrun it," she said. "Not like this." Ray straightened. "Then what do we do?" Zora didn't answer immediately. Then, finally, she said, "We fight." Ray blinked. Then he laughed. "Fight? Are you insane? That thing is eating reality itself." Zora turned to him, her silver eyes flashing. "We are already dead if we run. If you have a better plan, human, I would love to hear it." Ray gritted his teeth. He didn't have a better plan. Hell, he didn't have any plan. Zora continued. "There is one weapon that might stop it. A warship. Ancient. Hidden." Ray frowned. "And let me guess, we have no idea where it is." A small smirk played of the corner of Zora's lips. "Wrong. I know exactly where it is." Ray exhaled sharply. "You're just full of surprises, aren't you?" Zora locked the ship's course. "Strap in, human. If we fail, every species in the galaxy dies." Ray glanced one last time at the growing darkness behind them. No pressure, then. The final battle. The warship was buried beneath a dead world. As Zora's fighter ship descended through the thick, stormy atmosphere, Ray Carter got his first look at the graveyard planet, a barren wasteland covered in the wreckage of battles that had happened long before humans ever reached the stars. Blackened ship husks stretched across the landscape like skeletal remains. Massive craters, still glowing with faint embers, told stories of wars forgotten by time. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the whispers of the dead. Ray tightened his grip on his seat. This place felt wrong. He turned to Zora. "You sure this warship even exists?" Zora's silver eyes didn't waver. "I would not have brought you here if I wasn't." The ship landed in a clearing near the edge of a massive chasm. Zora shut down the engines and stood. "Come, human. We don't have much time." Ray followed her out into the cold, dust-filled air. The ground cracked beneath his boots as he moved, every step feeling like it might awaken something long forgotten. Then he saw it. A ship. No, a monster made of metal and ancient power. The warship was embedded deep in the chasm, its enormous hull covered in battle scars. But despite the centuries, it still pulsed with a faint golden light. Ray let out a low whistle. That thing looks older than Earth itself. Zora nodded. It was built before my ancestors even knew war. A weapon forged by a forgotten race. She turned to him. It is the only thing that can kill the Great Devourer. Ray raised an eyebrow. Then why haven't your people used it before? Zora's expression darkened. Because the weapon inside does not just destroy. She walked forward, placing her hand on the ancient metal. The ship responded. A deep, low hum vibrated through the ground. Symbols along the warship's surface began to glow, and with a loud, thunderous crack, a massive entrance slowly began to open. Ray stepped back. Well, that's not ominous at all. Zora didn't smile. Get inside. Now. They hurried into the massive warship. The inside was dark, cold. Strange alien markings covered the walls, pulsing with slow golden light. Ray could feel it, power humming in the very air. They'd reached the command center, where an enormous console sat waiting. Zora placed her hand against it. Her room came to life. Holograms flashing, systems rebooting after millennia of silence. Then, a deep, ancient voice filled the chamber. Warning. The extinction PROTOCOL cannot be RDVRCT. Ray's stomach dropped. Extinction protocol. That doesn't sound good. Zora's face was unreadable. This ship carries a weapon unlike any other. She turned to him. It does not fire bullets. It does not launch missiles. Ray's breath caught in his throat. Then what does it do? Zora exhaled. It erases. Silence. Ray stared at her. You mean? Zora nodded. If we activate this weapon, the Great Devourer dies. Her voice dropped. But everything it has already touched, all the planets, the ships, the people will be lost forever. Not even dust will remain. Ray ran a hand down his face. So either we let that thing eat the galaxy, or we wipe out everything it's consumed. Zora's gaze was steady. Yes. A loud roar shook the ship. Warning sirens blared. Ray turned to the view screen, and his blood turned to ice. Outside, the Great Devourer had arrived. A swirling, monstrous shadow, so vast it blocked out the sky. Reality itself was breaking apart at the edges of its form. Zora looked at Ray. We must decide. Now. Ray clenched his fists. He was just a soldier, the survivor. And now he had to make a choice that would change the fate of the entire galaxy. The truth changes everything. The warship trembled, its ancient systems roaring back to life. Warning sirens screamed through the control room. The Great Devourer loomed outside, a swirling, monstrous void stretching across the sky, devouring everything in its path. Ray Carter stared at the control panel. One push of a button, and the weapon would fire. One push, and the Great Devourer would be erased from existence. But so would everything it had touched, entire planets, alien civilizations, his own people who had been lost in battle. Every trace of them would vanish forever. Ray's hands clenched into fists. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man trying to survive. But now, survival wasn't enough. Zora stood beside him, her silver eyes locked on the controls. For the first time, there was no hatred in her gaze. No anger, just something that looked almost human. This is the only way, she said, her voice steady. Ray exhaled slowly. Maybe. He looked out the view screen at the swirling darkness. And then he saw something. Amidst the chaos, amidst the devouring void, there was light. Faint, flickering specks. Stars. No, something more. Ray's eyes narrowed. Pieces of something trying to break free. And then it hit him. What if we don't have to erase everything? He said. Zora frowned. What are you talking about? Ray turned to her. You said this weapon doesn't just destroy. It erases. Completely, right? She nodded. Yes. That is why it is our only option. Ray's mind raced. But what if it doesn't just erase the Great Devourer? What if it erases the damage it has caused? Zora's expression flickered. That's not how it works. Are you sure? Ray stepped closer. This ship, this technology, it's older than both of us. Maybe it doesn't just wipe things out. Maybe it resets them, restores them. Zora hesitated. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. Ray turned back to the controls. The Great Devourer was getting closer. Reality itself was breaking apart. He had to take the chance. Ray slammed his hand down on the console. The warship's core ignited. Outside, the air crackled with golden energy. Light erupted from the warship, surging outward in waves. The Great Devourer let out a monstrous, unearthly roar as the energy struck it. And for the first time, it shrank back. The swirling darkness began to collapse inward, twisting violently, fighting against the force of the weapon. Zora watched in awe. It's working. Ray gritted his teeth. Come on, come on. Then, the universe shattered. For a split second, everything was gone. The warship, the planet, the stars, even Ray himself. And then, light. Ray gasped as he opened his eyes. He was standing, not in the warship, not in space, but somewhere else. A planet, green fields, a bright sky, a sun that wasn't burning out. And in the distance, human ships, alien cities. Ray's heart pounded. The war was over. The Great Devourer was gone, and everything it had consumed was restored. Zora stood beside him, breathing heavily, her silver eyes wide with disbelief. You were right, she whispered. Ray exhaled, his chest still tight. Damn right I was. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zora turned to him. So what happens now, human? Ray smirked. I guess we try something new. She raised an eyebrow. And what is that? Ray looked at the horizon. The future was unknown. The past was behind them. And for the first time, humanity and her people weren't enemies. Peace, Ray said. Zora tilted her head then, finally, she smiled. Maybe, just maybe, the war was finally over.